Hey guys, welcome back to another video in this channel. Today we're going to continue with the ADEX project and we're going to be finishing the textures for this guy right here. So there were a couple of things that I saw on this thing that I want to fix. For instance, on the layer here with the aluminum insulator that we have, I changed this to triplanar projection hoping that we would get a better distortion, and yes we did, but unfortunately we do get a little bit of overlap here because that's like the corner where the thing kind of blends into each of the sides of the triplanar projection. So I'm going to change this back to UV projection. Yes, it's going to like distort some of the triangles a little bit, but I don't think that's that much of a problem, to be honest. So let's just wait for this to be finished, and there we go. So yeah, that's a little bit better. Yes, again, there's a little bit of distortion there. That's due to the UVs, but I think we can deal with it, right? So now we need to talk about. I want to talk about anchor points. Anchor points are one of those things that are really important for adding extra details. So you guys remember how we added all of these extra details on the helmet? One thing that we can definitely do, by the way, is if I remember correctly, where is it? I'm trying to find where the oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the decal. So if you remember this one's right here, we turned off everything except for the height information. And technically we could just like add a color and maybe like color this like dark, like a dark color, so that we add that stuff. But if we want to add rust on that specific area, since this information is not baked on the what's the word, on the normal map, we are not going to be able to do that. So how do we fix this? Very easily. First, let me rename this thing to height info. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this mask right here. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say add anchor point. Okay. So as you can see, this anchor point is going to be called height info. And now if I go all the way down to the rust right here, let's bring it up. So it's on top of everything. There we go. Well, maybe not on top of everything. I think what I would rather do is I'm just going to grab the height info. I'm just going to bring it below the rust. There we go. So now on the dirt of the rust, what we can do is we can go down here to the micro details, and we can turn on micro height and micro normal, both of them. And then down here, once that thing is set up on the micro normal, we can select the anchor point and the micro point, the anchor point as well. So as you can see now, what just happened there is that it's grabbing some information from that layer and it's using information to bringing a little bit of that rust inside of those cavities, which we didn't have before. You can see it right there, how it's going right on the, well, I think right now it's inverted, so I think we need to go here on, do we invert this one? Let's just wait for this to do the change. I don't think it's the micro normal, I think it's the micro height. So here, let's invert. And let's see if that gives us this result. But what it's doing, it's pretty much extracting information from the micro height that we just set up on the other layer, and it's using that to populate, there we go, to populate the rust on this ones right here. So as you can see now, we're going to be able to find some of that information inside of the little holes right there. Of course, we'll still have the clouds. So if I turn off the clouds, as you can see, the dirt is definitely going there, but the clouds is like removing some of that information. It's a really fast way to add that little details on top of everything. You can see it on this one over here as well. See how we're getting that very nice little effect. Looks quite nice. Now we're going to start talking about the details, like the actual details. There's a saying that says the devil's on the details, right? So that's what we want to capture here with this one. Let me actually, I was just in my tablet just a moment ago. I'm going to turn it off. So for the details, first of all, we need to think about what kind of details we're going to be seeing on this helmet, right? Like, are there any specific details that I'm expecting to see? And I think scratches would be a very nice thing. So I'm going to grab this aluminum one. I'm going to bring it all the way to the top. I'm going to add a black mask. These are going to be general details, by the way. They're going to be affecting the whole helmet. I'm going to add a generator here, and we're going to add a, no, sorry, not generator. I'm going to add a fill layer, and we're going to add a scratches. There's a very nice mask here called grunge scratches. It's really good because, as you can see, it gives us this very cool effect of scratches pretty much everywhere. We can, of course, change this to something like a linear dodge so that the colors are combined, and we can lower this thing a little bit. And now what we can do is we can definitely hide some of them, because right now we have like scratches everywhere, and I don't want to have scratches everywhere. So I'm going to add a new paint layer on this mask, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with, I'm just gonna paint it, to be honest. I'm just gonna paint this where I don't want any of this like scratches to be. So I would expect there to be scratches like on the upper part of the helmet, maybe a little bit on the ears, maybe a little bit on certain parts. Let's turn off here. What we can do is, instead of, because if we paint white, this thing happens, but if we erase, we can bring back some of the damage. There we go. And that's it. Now, this is one of those layers that I would definitely try to add a little bit of hide information if possible. So I'm going to push this hide information in just a little bit. Maybe even less than that. Let's find minus 0.04. Just a small little bump here and there to help me get like a little bit of extra information from the elements. But yeah, that looks good. Ignore the horns. Nothing that's happening on the horns is going to be on the final render, because as we mentioned, the horns are going to be just like a pure like crystal material. So there's no need to do anything there. Cool. So that looks good. I think another thing that definitely could benefit this string is a little bit of emissive maps, right? Like having those little like lights glowing in certain areas is always a cool detail. We can even use some of these elements to, again, kind of hide some of the like the bad damages that we had due to the bake. So I'm going to go first of all to texture set settings, and we're going to go down here to channels, and we're going to add a emissive map right here. So now when we create a new layer, this new layer will have the emissive channel. So we can select the light. The light really doesn't matter. We can, at the end of the day, use any color. But I know that we're going to be using an orange color for the helmet. So the complementary color of orange is blue. So going for this sort of like blue color is a good idea. So I'm going to black mask this as well. Here I am going to definitely turn on symmetry. And now the only thing we need to do is tell this thing where we want the light to be. So for instance, right there. And again, those sort of details, always good. those little thingies right there, they're always a really good way to add my favorite word, visual interest to the whole thing. As you can see, I'm going for this soft light, so it's kind of like the diffuse light. It's not supposed to be it's not going to be like a light bulb, right? It's just like some sort of like plasticky thing that has some blue effects right there. For instance, I really like this thing right here, this hexagonal shape. By pressing shift, we can create this very sharp lines in a very fast way. We can, or in a very fast way we can do that. Look, this thing right here it's kind of asking me to have a little bit of light, so like just a little detail there, so that we have like 6 points around the face, and they kind of like frame everything together. And yeah, that looks pretty cool. It seems like we mess up something over here. Let's go to the paint layer and hide that. There we go. That looks nice. Looks really nice. Cool. Now let's talk about decals, because decals are always, again, very cool, and it's a good idea to add them. I do remember there's like a tool here to use text, I believe. Textures. But to be honest, I am a little bit old school, so I prefer to to do it manually. So I'm going to show you how to do this manually. And we're going to, of course, add the ADEX project or ADEX like name somewhere, right, on the element. I think based on this thing, it might be a good idea to have it like on this section right here on one side. So maybe here it's going to say ADEX, and then over here like a number, like a serial number or something. So let's go here to Photoshop now. There we go. I'm going to open a new file. 1024 is fine. It's not going to be super big, so 1024 is fine. And let's select our dark color. I'm going to fill this layer with black, and then I'm going to select white for my letters. I don't remember if I have some sort of like sci-fi like font. It doesn't seem like it. So this is one of the advantages. I know that in the creative world, there's a lot of those guys that plunder islands and look for treasures. There's a lot of piracy going on, which I hate. The other day I found some of the tutorials that I've recorded pirated on some other websites, and I mean, it's part of the internet, right? Like there's not much you can do. But the cool thing is, if you buy things, like if you are subscribed and stuff to that, or like that, you can actually get a lot of cool stuff. So for instance, Adobe actually allows you to get some like free fonts if you want, but it's taking too long. So for now, I'm going to show you another place where you can look for fonts. It's called The Font. That's one of the ones that I know. And it's free fonts here. So if I look for something, again, like sci-fi, it's going to give me this sort of stuff. Or I can look for, I don't know, science. And I can find something like this one, like this hard science. Looks interesting. You can also go by themes over here. So here, science fiction. There we go. This is a little bit better. So game of, that's like Squid Game. But yeah, so if you find something that looks interesting, go for it. My advice is don't go for something for things that are like over the top, because they look kind of weird. Like this null shuck, that one looks cool. So just go here, and then you just download this. You're gonna get this zip, and once you have this, you just install this font. It's called null shuck regular, and we just go back to Photoshop, and we just write ADEX, right? So we can add some points. There we go. Grab this thing, and let's look for the new one. What was the name? Null shuck. Null shuck. Oop. So we call this a null shuck. There we go. That's it. Now we just find a nice size. Let's say something like 200. And we just move it into position. You can press Control T to scale it down. And what we want to do is we just want to create like the alpha right here. That looks good. And then we can just like duplicate this one so that we have the same size. And we can call this project. Just project. That kind of looks cool. Let's add the word there. And then let's duplicate it once more. And I'm gonna do like, let's say, what would be a good number? Let's try 0042. I like that number. So we're gonna save this. Let's save it on the desktop. JPEG is fine. Let's call this a Decals. And that's it. So now, if we go to the desktop real quick, desktop, and we grab that decal right there, just bring this here. I'm gonna set this as an alpha, and this is only gonna be for the project, so only on this file this thing is gonna be like, it's gonna be there, right? And then we're gonna create, of course, a new layer. It's gonna be a black layer, most probably. It's definitely gonna be a little bit rougher, the rough side. And we're gonna add a black mask. Now I'm gonna go to my number 3, which is projection mode. And over here, we can drop this thing right there. And as you can see, the decals are gonna be there. So this works pretty much like a stencil. So I'm just gonna find like a good position, like here. And if you press S and middle mouse, you're gonna be able to move this, scale this, and rotate this with the 3 like mouse key like inputs. So we just position this where we want, and we write the name right there. There we go. That looks nice. Unfortunately, I made a mistake there, and I kept symmetry turned on, so let's turn it off, because I just want this thing to be here. ADEX. And then on this other side, trying to keep the size as consistent as possible. Might not be, we might need to adjust a couple of things, right? Because the things are not precise, but we can say project. And then the 0042, again, let's try to find, we can have it like here, like a small letter maybe. Careful here because it finds like the black pieces, so. I don't know. I don't love it. So I like the ADEX. I don't love the project. I do like the 0042, so maybe we'll just keep the numbers. like that. We go back to number 1, and to give this a little bit of a damage look, what we can do is we can actually add a generator here. We can add a dirt generator. And we've talked about this. If you haven't seen the Metal Edgeware one that I uploaded a couple of days ago, check that video because it has a couple of interesting tricks. We can use a multiply here, as you can see, to blend how like damage or not this thing is. So we can add a little bit of that. Very, very cool damage. Oh, maybe a little bit more. Remember, we're working with 4K textures, and it's 4K, 4K UDIM tiles, so that's why it's getting a little bit slower here on my computer. It's definitely quite a bit of performance, or it's quite heavy performance-wise. But as you can see, this looks not bad at all. Now I'm going to show you two little tricks that I like to use. I normally use these things for stylized things, but I think it's going to look good on this one, and it's a way to add more depth to the whole thing. So we're going to add a new fill layer. It's going to be a basic color fill layer. We're going to add a black mask, and we're going to add a fill, and we're going to use the Ambient Occlusion map. So if we look for the Ambient Occlusion, what we're going to get here is the Ambient Occlusion of the element. The only problem is that the Ambient Occlusion is usually flipped. So we need to add a levels, and we need to invert those levels. The material, of course, as I mentioned, it's supposed to be black, so let's bring it here. And now with the levels that we just added, we can actually push the contrast of the pieces. See that? So we can add that very nice dark shadow pretty much everywhere. And now I don't like having this like super intense. It's a little bit too much, right? So I either change this to overlay, which I don't always like, because as you can see, it just like multiplies some things weirdly, or just lower the intensity a little bit. So it's going to be like a 35% or something. And as you can see, it's kind of like adding a little bit of a shadow pass without having the shadow itself. You can see it here on the color channel. It's just adding that little thing. And I can actually push these things, some of the elements here, to make it a little bit sharper. There we go. So it's going to be barely noticeable, but it's going to be there. It's like, again, like a little bit of an extra shadow that really helps the whole thing. And I mean, if you like this like super intense, it looks a little bit more comic book style, I would say. But if you like this like super intense effect, feel free to use this. Actually, I think I'm going to go quite high. I'm going to go like 50. There we go. So yeah, that's a nice bus. And then this next one, I really love this one. Look at this. I'm going to add a new layer here. It's also going to be a color layer. It's going to be white, completely white. And this I am going to change to linear dodge so it multiplies the colors. We're going to add a black mask, and we're going to add a couple of things. First, we're going to add a, a generator. And it's going to be a light generator. So this one, it's pretty much like if a light was shining on top of the object. I think I've used this one before in some other tutorials that I've done with you guys. But as you can see, this is pretty much like if a light is shining on top of the object, or like if a layer of dust is sitting on top, which makes it look really, really, really cool. Of course, we're going to lower this thing quite a bit. But again, as you can see, this is going to give me a little bit of an extra highlight there on the upper parts. It's barely visible, but it's going to help push it, especially if you're working with flat colors like this. If you're doing like a flat, imagine you're doing a game where you don't have normal map, it's just like the color map. This is what you would get, and it looks pretty good, right? Like if you see a game that's running like super low on performance and you have these textures, the textures make it look really, really nice. This is what they used to do back in the day for World of Warcraft. The only problem with the light generator, as you can see here, it's very intense, right? So I'm gonna add another generator here, and it's gonna be a dirt generator. And what I'm gonna do, as you might expect, is I'm gonna multiply this too, so that the light, it's only hitting on the, well, in this case, I think at the dirt we need to invert it. There we go. So that the light is only hitting on the high parts, right? So it's not gonna, as you can see, the holes right there, which already has some nice contrast, is not gonna be affecting those. It's only gonna be affecting the top parts. And again, it's just a very like subtle, nice little like effect there that we add to make things shine a little bit more. You can of course change this however you want. Even another thing you can do, for instance, maybe I don't want this to be here. I just want it to be on the white parts of the armor. So what I can do, for instance, is first of all, let me get this underneath the decal, because I really want the decal to be like really dark. And then I can add another paint layer and fill this thing, this object. Well, not the object, sorry. Just paint out this piece right here. Right? So therefore, what's going to happen is, yes, we're going to have the nice little like shiny or like washed out effect on the metal, but not on that like weird plastic. And there we go. So now our helmet's looking quite nice. And I mean, with this, you can of course keep adding layers, more details, more elements. But hopefully with this demo, guys, you now feel a little bit more comfortable or interested in understanding how all of this works. If you guys are interested, we just released a new advanced course for Substance Painter where they cover a big amount of information with a lot of characters. So if that's something that you're interested, remember that we do have the Skillshare promotion right here. Hey guys, Abraham here. I just wanted to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below. So there we go, and yeah, as you guys can see here, we have everything ready. So there's just one more final thing I'm gonna do, and that's I'm gonna export this. I'm gonna say File, Export Textures, and we're gonna export this into I'm gonna use the Unreal Engine template. So first of all, we need to of course select the proper place. So let's go next to Live, Assets, Sci-Fi. That's gonna be it, and then we're gonna export in Unreal Engine. Now, since we're using UDEMs, technically, yes, we could use, actually, no, since we're going to be doing the render inside of Maya, I'm going to export this in Arnold. And I'm going to show you in the next video how to set up the UDEMs. We've done this before, but it's always a good thing to remember. And we're going to do a cool little cinematic a render for this one as well. So a standard is going to be 4K, so we'll just hit export, and as you can see, we're going to get the base color, the emissive, the height, the metalness, the normal, and the roughness. It's a lot of maps. This is why UDEMs are not always used, because as you can see, just for a simple helmet, we have, what is it, like 20 maps, like all of these maps, and that might not be something that you are looking for, right? Because it's not super performance savvy, but as you can see, the result, I think they speak for themselves. I mean, for this being a quick 1 hour texturing work, I think this is quite nice. So yeah, this is it, guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you back tomorrow. Make sure to leave a like, share, comment. I love the comments. I love to read your comments. We had a great time this past weekend, by the way, also with the portfolio review. If you want to check it out, it's on the live stream section of our videos. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good one.